Let's get weird, buddy. Let's get weird.
Guys, where are we?
Well, if there's a bright center to the universe, you're on the planet that it's farthest from.
Welcome to the Outer Rim. Enjoy your stay. It's Smirking Gun, and we finally returned to the Terror Infamy, the second season of this anthology series that I do think is actually getting a third season in 2025, I think. I don't know what it's about or if it actually is happening, but that's just still what I saw somewhere. I don't know. Maybe it was a fever dream. No, I think it was even at IMDb has a third season listed as well. But yeah, after a hiatus, we're back. And I was, wondering, as I always do, what am I going to say about this? Like, what is this going to give me anything? And this is just like, as much as I've talked about like all the things historically relevant and topical. This is just a good ass episode of television that fooled me, that had me thinking one way for sure, and then pulled the rug out from under me in this episode. So if you have been liking what we've been doing here on the channel, which is a mix of everything, okay, we're weird. It's weird here, okay, on the Outer Rim. We just do what we want, talk about what we want, and figure out ways to go about it without getting copyright strikes. And again, yeah, because I think so many of the best creative minds right out there right now are the channels you've never, ever heard of. So join us here on the Outer Rim as we talk about the Terror Infamy, Episode 5, Shatter Like a Pearl. Spoilers for all of it, because there is, of course, some things to talk about in here, but not. Mostly it's stuff that we've kind of gone over, and I don't want to keep repeating myself and keep beating that same drum. When if you're watching this show, you're probably catching most of the same vibes I am, or maybe it's the first time that you've thought about it like this. I don't know. But this episode really threw me for a loop because it has leaned heavy into the supernatural in this, and many characters believe in it. Many characters in this episode have experienced something, and in this, it's kind of like a twist. I felt a little like a Twilight Zone episode here, where call it one of those episodes where a guy sits in front of another guy, and you start to wonder, is the guy across from me the devil? And then you really start to think it is the devil, and what if it just turns out that it's still just a person? Well, that's what we get here for part of it. The one thing I'll say is I wish they had never introduced the other monster coming there. But we'll get to it. And we spend most of our time in this episode it's starting at February 4th, 1943. Chester is still in Guadalcanal, and he's just, he's gotten the news now. We got it, I think, at the end of last episode, where they have the letter and everything, and the news has just been killing him, and he's seeing families, and he's got this guy behind him who we will talk about this guy in a second. He's like, well, my girl left me, but I still did my job. And it's like, this guy's had two infant sons die while he was away. He never got to see them. He wasn't there for, like all the pregnancy. He didn't. You'd feel so powerless. Like, was there something I could do? but I'm here and now they're dead and I'll never know. And that kind of psychological damage is not the same. It's like he tries to kind of like play it up, like that sarcastically, like, yeah, it is the same. Your girl goes home to Patello. My kids are buried in a prison camp. And it's like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah, he is justifiably upset. And this is where we get that kind of character who tries it. I'd call it the well-meaning white person character who just, is the character that should just keep your fucking mouth shut. Just zip it. Like there's that level of empathy like that character always has, like, right? This character knows something is happening, knows somebody's upset, some reason really, they really want to you know show support, but the character is always written in that awkward way of like the tone deaf kind of not knowing how to read the room, not understanding that everybody's experiences are different, especially like the completely tuned out kind of way that some white people can be. Really, anybody can be this way, not just white people, but that kind of way where you just, you don't read the room, you don't understand certain things, and you open up and you say something anyway, and the response to the negative reaction that person gets is always what, like looking around, arms up slightly, like what what did I say, like the person who's perpetually just doesn't know what to say, they're a little behind the times, and sometimes it truly is like, they really mean well and blah blah blah, and you can grin and bear it with most people, but then there's some people that like this kind of character where you just want to knock their block off. And it's a cliche for a reason, but I don't know. It's a tired cliche, but when you've been around, when you watched as many shows and movies as I have, you're gonna run into a lot of things like this. You just don't get it, character, right? But they've got the new batch of translators coming, and this is where, okay, this scene's a little weird. It's like it's to set up the monster in the episode, but you got these guys sitting at a table, and it's interesting. It's an interesting, odd scene, is all. It's an odd way of doing this. I guess it's like they want you to be kind of put at ease that you're just having, listening to a conversation between some guys talking about, the chances of getting hurt out there and how nobody's died. And maybe we're due now for somebody to get killed because we've been dodging so many bullets. And this is their segue to talk about a character named Terajima, who they like, who do you think's going to bite it? And it's like, oh, Terajima, he seems kind of spooked. He's got that spooked look in his eye right lately. And well, yeah, they and this is where it's all for this. It's all for this creepy moment of the person that is not a person anymore. Whoever that person is, they're dead somewhere else, buried. I don't know. And now this thing's in its place. And they did that thing with the tapping with the fingertips that was extra nice and creepy. But otherwise, there's like this really long scene where I would have expected, the guys that say this it's like having it reminded me of like a conversation in Scream. Like like the rules of a horror movie, the way these guys were talking. So I have expected one of them to say, I'll be right back. But yes, this is just showing that the monster is there. The monster is somebody from the camp and took his place. And it's probably a character that I saw already, but don't remember. And it's to show that this thing is now coming for Chester. Or adding, yeah, I mean, you can put you can connect the dots, is what I'm saying. And it is creepy. And there's something bloody. It's carrying something bloody onto the ship. Okay, we'll just talk about that. What's in that bag? What? I thought it was just a bunch of sloppy body parts that maybe this thing has to use to, like, if it needs more. The answer's worse. Well, the answer's not worse. It's not necessarily worse. It's just crazier. It's fucked up. So at the camp, it's questionnaire time. It's the prove you're a loyal American thing. And if there's something bigger to say about this, I mean, look, they are prisoners of war, basically, right? They haven't done anything to be prisoners of war. They are in this internment camp for their own protection, I'm sure, is how a lot of it gets labeled. Well, what happens if, some people, we know that they're fine, but what if old Gerald down the street gets it in his head to go kill all the Japanese people, like, but you're already in there for these bullshit reasons. And now they want you to answer a questionnaire, and they want you to like bow your head, they want you to get on your knees and kiss their shoes for the pleasure of being here. And that I can see the mentality of these people who are like, what's the big deal, man? We're just asking you to make sure that you're, loyal. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is that why should we be the only ones to have to prove our loyalty just because it's wartime? And it's, like, with the mentality of it being like, well, if you're real Americans, what's the big deal? But if it's okay, so in this case, right, what's the big deal, right? What's the big deal? Just writing down like, yes, you're a loyal American, right? No big deal. This is how they react. But you ask them to say somebody's pronouns or give, any kind of little whip or recognition of anything that they just disagree with for whatever fucking reasons, they lose their fucking minds over. But, when it comes to what they want, it's always, well, come on, man. What? Just the entitlement that people have. Wow, I guess I did have something to say. Prove you're an American. There's questions on there that Americans now wouldn't want to answer with a yes. Like right now, there'd probably be a lot of no's on that thing from a lot of people. But they don't want to do it because they feel like it's a trap, which is also valid. Did we ever honor anything that we, was ever, done for the Native Americans, the indigenous peoples of this area long before we got here, however you want to say it? So why would they honor this? I completely understand everything that's happening to these poor people at this time period in history feels like a trap. And because the white people making you sign it have never experienced anything like this, because again, so much I feel like in our lives over history has been so much about just nothing changes until all of a sudden something happens to the people that claim it's, none of these things are happening. But as soon as it actually happens to one of them, it's like, holy shit, it's real. But they don't ever say that either. They act like it's the first fucking time it ever happened. And it's like, how dare this society allow this great outrage to happen to me and to everyone? Except they leave out again. It fucking A. So once again, C. Thomas Howell's blaming all the prisoners of war for not making it easier on him. And that consequences for non-compliance are coming. And Ken and Amy, we find out, that she's, well, I guess times are tough and he's good looking. He's not too bright. But, when you're stuck like that. But they're setting up this whole thing, the drama between them, because he doesn't want to do it. He's trying to get a whole bunch of other people not to do it. And it begs the question of, do you stand for what you believe in? Or do you just go along to get along in this scenario? Do you swallow ungodly amounts of horror to get out of the situation alive? And then as I say that, I go, well, okay, I almost make it sound like there was ever a question of, like, I'm sure there were plans that were in place that where the American government would have just wiped out those people, right? If they made a plan to put them in the camps, there would have still been some fucked up plan in somebody's drawer with like double locks on it that says how to kill all the prisoners at these camps, how to get rid of them, right? But that's not that's not where this is supposed to be headed. But I was talking about this in a video I recorded for for one of my comic videos for Nice House on the Lake, and I was talking about what would I do if, I was alive and everybody else was dead and I was safe where I was. Would I fight? Would I be content with my safety, or would I try to fight to, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And on the surface, I'm like, well, I'm just glad I'm alive, and I'd be able to push through all this shit to like get through it. But in this situation, like like more of a, not some apocalyptic kind of situation. Like, what do you do when you know that you don't know if you're getting out of this place? You don't know if the government's going to hold up their end of the bargain. You don't know if they're going to just suddenly throw you into the military service or just throw you down some hole. But the easy yes, and when you don't know if yes or no will screw you, because you're dealing with people that don't think logically. It would be maddening. And we live in maddening times already. Well, they talk about Crittenden. If you don't remember who Crittenden is, in the Guadalcanal area of the story, he was the guy that had the Ure in him, right? That they caught. And they're just saying he was brainwashed. Basically just to, like, brush all this aside and that it's not some ghost thing. Don't worry about it, buddy. But one of the things, I guess the theme of this episode is, what am I? It comes up a lot. And to Chester right now, he feels useless. He doesn't feel like he's useful to the military, his family, his wife. His job is not really that important. Why is he here? If none of this mattered, and my kids are dead for no reason, and he's having a major struggle. And this comes up throughout. But they've got another prisoner, and this guy's acting just as wild as Crittenden. In fact, he's acting wilder, and I got to give it up to this guy's performance, man. He gives a great performance. And I as I'm thinking about the performances in this and the plot, this would have been a great like X-Files episode somehow, like a 2-part like story about maybe POWs or something like that, because this whole thing of the is it supernatural or not kind of thing that would also happen in X-Files episodes is great. Because we go into this tent, right, thinking the way this guy's acting, we've got another one. How many of these things are there, right? And he's spitting and calling Chester all kinds of things. And I mean, he uses a term that basically calls Chester a dead man walking amongst the living. And the whole part is to try to get interrogations. They want to interrogate this guy, but they're getting shut down. Meanwhile, back at the camp, we see Luz. I thought they were really looking at Yuko, but we haven't seen Yuko. It's just Luz, and she's going through postpartum depression. Like, I mean, she lost both of her children. The man that she loves is not there. Her family, her her side of the family is somewhere else, and she's stuck behind these fences, and she's now just haunted, just out in the swamp. So unhealthy. It's so depressing. It's so sad. And then, I mean, let's just cover her part of the story, the rest of it. But like, Luz's brother, she finds out, died in Africa. Her father comes and like gives her that news, and she finally, like, they finally get her out of there, um, or work on getting her out of there. Now, then swinging back to the Ken and Amy story. So basically, now they're saying that if you don't take this questionnaire, they will indefinitely imprison you, try you for treason. Now, you've done nothing to be there. They have no reason to put you there. You just have to be Japanese and you're there. And if you don't do this questionnaire, treason. Because, I mean, I guess, and again, in their minds, right, they're going the furthest extreme, because then they'll go, well, who would say yeah, like who would agree to being tried for treason? It's the only way to guarantee a yes. We don't necessarily think that any of these people are traitors, but we feel the need to threaten them with the only thing that's worse would be fucking the death penalty. So let's hit them with everything but death. And of course they'll sign it, because, you know, like who, like you'd be crazy not to. That kind of mentality, man. But Ken gets all of his buddies together. They all say no. And then Amy changes just his. And when they all get called up to be hauled away to jail, to a new camp where they were indefinitely imprisoned. Now, does that mean indefinitely through the war or indefinitely imprisoned forever? Well, if you're tried for treason, I would imagine it's for fucking ever. And so when Ken's name isn't called and he tries to be like, I'm with you guys, they're all like, fuck you, dude. You lied to us. And she has to confront, he confronts her about it. And nothing really happens there. He's just filled with shame. Another thing a lot of these characters bring up a lot is being, shameful to their family and dishonorable. And it's a weird way of talking about things, since here it doesn't feel like I think that there's extremes to that honor thing that are just, I don't think anybody could really live up to without making like insane kind of sacrifices. But I mean, it's not a bad thing to try to strive for, though, either. It's having some more honor and some more respectability to ourselves. I don't think it's such a bad thing. So they go to question what Chester thinks is a Yurei. He's running through the whole thing, this guy's no longer there. He's dead. I'm going to kill your whole family. Why don't you kill yourself? I'm here to save you, Chester. He gives him the whole spiel. And I mean, it's all right there. And it's a great performance. And you keep waiting for the next thing to happen. And it seems to like have this upper hand on him, like, what does he do? And then he's fiddling around and he takes his picture. And I thought that was baller the way he did it. Like, I don't know how else to say taking somebody's picture can look baller, but it looked baller the way he did it because of the reaction he got from this person, which was like, again, playing right into the hands of like what you think you're seeing, right? He's like, no, give me that picture. Because you're like, well, the thing gets his picture taken, it's going to look all fucked up, and all they'd have to do is like start taking pictures of everybody else and then keep taking pictures of him, and everyone will be fucked up. And the military will be like, okay, we got to lock this guy away at the very least and figure out what the hell's going on with his face. Right? But then he comes back and the picture's normal. And just like that, the episode flips, and he's just this guy. He is not a Yuri. He's just a guy who was willing to mess with their heads rather than give them information. He's so dedicated to the cause, dedicated to, even if he doesn't agree with the war that he's in and blah blah blah, his loyalty is so deep that he committed to this bit to just, it's wild, that kind of loyalty. Or what is it loyalty to? I feel like it's loyalty to the entire culture. Like there's this like ingrained thing to just strive for, to actually mean something. And when we say that again in America, when you're like, what is that, like, how are you an American, you're gonna get like, there's gonna be a whole bunch that'll tell you the same thing, that all fall into the one really wild category that we know and and don't love. But there's about a zillion other people will tell you a zillion other things, and I think that it's pretty valid, because this is the melting pot anyway. But there, Japan's had very historically strict, like, keeping things out of their culture. Watch movie Silence if you ever want to watch Martin Scorsese's Silence and see what happens when they try to bring, Christianity over to Japan. That was an awesome movie. That's an awesome movie if you don't like Christianity. But anyway, they end up having, like, they also flip it, and they get really into it, and it still was riding this line with me where I'm like, are they going to flip the other way again? And turns out that this thing is just playing him some more, but no. And you find out that this guy they both played baseball, and that this guy that they have captured struck out Lou Gehrig, small world. Like, things happen. You don't know who could be fighting in a war next to you, unless you're a politician's son, or a politician himself, sorry. But anyway, or anybody rich. I mean, Elvis went to war, bitches. Come on. Don't you want to be like Elvis? But they have this really great moment. And it's sad too, but it's pretty good. And the real monster finally arrives with the rest of the new translators. And I thought what was in the bag was just a bunch of like sloppy body parts. Seriously. It was one of the best, like, close, like, practical effects that you really wouldn't want to get that close to, because it would probably ruin the immersion of it. But it looked like just like horrible. Like, I get that lump in back of my throat just thinking about it. But before we get to the end, I want to talk about, I have to swing back to the Luz and the Ken and Amy thing. So Ken and Amy's thing is already taken care of, because everybody else went to jail but Ken and Amy. But before Luz leaves, she has to go get processed. She's got to answer some questions about her thing. Her dad's there with her. And sitting across from the table, I just always love to bring out this, because it is filmed in Vancouver, is character actor William McDonald as the processor. I know that it's just like the guy in processing who has to like ask her the different questions that are on the questionnaire, basically a version of it, of why should she be getting out of there early. But it's William McDonald standing there, and the reason I'm bringing him up is because he was in so many X-Files from seasons 1 through 5. He has got probably one of the, besides Mulder and Scully in the main cast, William McDonald has probably he's probably in the top 5 or 10 recurring guest actors on the X-Files. He's look, that was like, holy crap, like 30 years ago. So, but I'm bringing it up. In the 5 seasons that he was on the show, he really racked him up, and I'm really happy to see him still working all these years later in Canada or anywhere. Sorry. I kind of like spaced out due to my fandom. Uh, but they let her out, and she asks to have her toy that she has, the little drum, to return to Yuko. I did like that Chester's mother there was like, "You got this from Yuko?" Question mark. They didn't say she doesn't exist. They didn't say who's Yuko. But Henry runs up to Luz. They all start to pull their guns like assholes, and they let him and her hug. And it's really nice. It was really sweet, telling her to be safe, because he knows something's wrong. It's still out there. Like, but going back now where it's not safe is back where Chester is. And just as they're letting him off the hook for what happens with the prisoner, who he lets him go to kill himself. And let me tell you something. Seppuku, watching somebody do seppuku to themselves, first off, Chester, I don't know why you kept looking, man. And maybe it was like out of some sort of respect of like, I can't not look at this. I don't know if there's some dishonor if you don't watch a man kill himself, but like that's a brutal way, and committed. You have to be committed to finish that job. And again, the follow through, like, gotta give it up, man. They were some mighty powerful fighters in World War II. I don't know, like, I can't speak to anybody's army now, but like and since we don't hear about seppuku happening because I'm just saying. But they're letting him off, He's like, yeah, whatever. We got some more. We got the birth date of Takahashi. That's more than anybody else got, and we got bigger plans for you. And I'm like, okay, so how are they going to introduce the monster that's now there, carrying around this bag full of body parts? And behind Chester, you see Arthur Ogawa, the guy that I really liked from the show Patriot. And all of a sudden you see his body like snapping around like the Thing. And I'm like, oh God, they got him. The monster killed Arthur and now takes his place, smacks Chester in the face, puts him in a Jeep at gunpoint and says, we're going home. And all I'm thinking to myself is, what? Does this thing not understand how things work? I don't know. I don't think it was planning that far ahead, because as soon as Reed Diamond's character sees them, he's like, they're running. And they start blasting the hell out of it. And I got to give it up to I know this is the show and they weren't really shooting at him. They made a point to say, shoot out the tires in the car. We're trying not to kill these guys. We want them alive. But the Jeep flips the fuck over. And you could even hear it like, ah! And it was a good stunt. They showed it. The way they filmed that, it went, man. They did that shit. And after the fact, Chester's stuck in the Thing. Arthur Ogawa monster has been thrown clear. And all of a sudden, so it's like, the monster's laying there, right? It's Arthur. Well, it's going to eventually stand up, or whatever. Or maybe it's already going to go on. What I imagined the end of this was that the military was going to arrive on the scene, and the Arthur Ogawa would either be just dead or gone. And they would blame him no matter what. I don't know what they're going to do by the beginning of the next episode, because the bag starts moving. And I was like, wait a minute, is Arthur Ogawa in that bag still alive? Is he going to pop out and be like, what the fuck happened to Chester? What the fuck? But no, it's Yuko, or I think it's Yuko, or whatever's pretending to be Yuko or whatever. It just comes slopping out all bendy and shit. And I'm sorry, but I had like a strange physical response to when this monster like started getting close to him. I felt terror. I felt real terror, man, of like, this thing, if this thing, like something like this ever existed. So it reaches Chester and it's like, it's time to go. And that's how it ends, like as it's touching him. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's an ending. That is an amazing ending to this episode because it really makes you go, I've got to see what happens at least the next episode before I give up on this show. Even if you weren't enjoying the show, you saw that ending, you tune into the beginning or at least get to like, what the fuck happened? Like, did this thing kill him? Is this thing taking him over? Is this thing killing him and riding him around like a Chester suit to like go around and kill everybody? Is he going to kill Luz? Oh man, see, I'm going down speculation rabbit hole highway. So, time to pull back and say, wow, I really liked that episode. There was still so much going on. And so, that's where we have to leave it for this week, or this moment anyway. This is the halfway point. There's still 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 5 more fucking episodes. I still can't believe that this story still like is finding ways to go on. Like, how long into the timeline is this? Because they were making sure the dates were important. So when's the next date going to set up? Will we even know what happened at the end of this? Or was it going to jump to like 1946 for all we know? Anyway, probably not. The speculation highway is filled with too many big ideas. But anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all freaking notifications and all that jazz. Otherwise, this is Rob saying, have a great day. Be good to each other. Watch all these weird-ass shows that you can. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye. Woo. Ba-ba-ba-bum. Ba-bum-bum-bum-bum. Bum-bum-bum-bum. Bum 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 bum.